Hi, good evening. My name is Alayna Cole. I'm a graduate student at Liberty University in the School of Behavioral Sciences. And I facilitated a support group on March 5th at 2:30 in the afternoon that lasted for approximately 60 minutes at Naval Medical Center, Camp Lejeune, here in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. We held our group meeting in the dental clinic where I'm an employee in the recovery room area. My group consisted of 8 participants. There were both men and women. They were active duty Navy sailors as well as military dependents. We are all co-workers. We work together in the dental clinic. And I did not use a co-leader. I was the singular leader for this support group. The purpose of my group was to discuss in detail the unique challenges faced by military members and their families, including geographical separation from our immediate family members, the stress that's endured in long deployments and separations from our loved ones, and to talk about what it's like to experience caregiver fatigue. Now I'll speak briefly about the dynamics, content, and process of our support group. So at the beginning of the meeting, I asked everyone to sit in a circle so that they could all see each other. I opened the meeting by introducing myself by my first name. I didn't use my rank or my title. And I talked about the purpose of the meeting. I also stated the rules, most importantly that confidentiality was to be adhered to, and that first names were to be used. We would not be addressing each other by rank or title. I used a round as an icebreaker to open the group. I asked each of the members to state their name, how long they or their family members had been serving in the military or working at the hospital. And then I asked them to state one positive experience that they've had while working or serving in the military, and one negative experience that they have had. Some of the things that I observed as the group leader, at the beginning, all of the members were reserved and they were slow to participate. You could tell by their body language that they were tense. As they were speaking, initially they looked to me as the group leader for validation to what they were saying. And they weren't looking at each other. They were making eye contact with me. Their responses, I noticed, were short, and they didn't go into a lot of detail. But what I did notice, by the time we got to the end of the round, at the end of 8 people, I did notice that there was greater eye contact between the members. They were looking at me, but not as often. They were more looking at other group members and speaking to them. They were speaking to each other. Their body language was beginning to relax. You could tell by their posture, and you could see that they were becoming more engaged in the group. Some of the skills that I used were active listening and summarizing. I deepened the focus after the round, and I asked how group members were feeling about what had been shared. One of the participants, named David, began speaking to another member whose name was Cody about how he had supposed that it was difficult to be single in the military, but after hearing about Cody's experiences as a newlywed and then a divorcee in the Navy, he had misjudged that experience, that he didn't know what he thought he had known. Some of the group leader skills that I used additionally were I used my energy to show enthusiasm for the topic. I also tried to set a positive tone. I was encouraging and supporting to facilitate group member engagement as the meeting continued on, and I used eye contact to draw out 2 of the members that were more reserved and shy at the beginning of the group. A lot of the members talked about how bringing work home can be a source of stress, but that bringing what's going on at home to work can also be difficult. And in the military culture, we often are told to leave our personal issues at home because of the hierarchical structure. It's not easy to talk about what you're enduring with officers and enlisted because of the hierarchy of military leadership. Many of the members began linking their own stories, first by my example, but then they began talking to each other about the difficulties that they've experienced in maintaining close relationships with their family members who are far away in other states. Many of them talked about how their parents or their aunts and uncles or their brothers and sisters they didn't understand what it was like to serve in the military. They didn't really understand the motivation for why those members were serving. Some of the members talked about how military deployments or leaving your spouse at home, at your home of record, wherever you came into the military from, how that can place strain on those romantic relationships and sometimes end in divorce. So the discussion became much more robust, much deeper as time went on, and I spent most of my time just listening and using my eyes and being quiet and allowing them to speak to each other. In terms of self-assessment, my assessment of my performance, one of the challenges that I faced as the group leader was limiting the amount of self-disclosure that I did. While leading and disclosing about yourself can be a beneficial step to help members get to know the leader better and see them less distant and more engaged, it can also be I didn't want to speak too much about myself and inadvertently take the focus off of the group. And I caught myself sometimes sharing too much. I wanted to limit my amount of self-disclosure so that they weren't relying upon my opinions as a leader to validate what they were saying. The other challenge that I had besides self-disclosure is management of time, which was a big challenge. I took too much time with the introductory round experience, and I ran out of time to hold the dyad afterwards, where members were to speak one-on-one with another member about their biggest challenges faced and how they've overcome them with respect to their military life. As the Jacobs text points out, deepening the focus without adequate time left in the meeting can leave members hanging, and it's not an example of good leadership. So time management is something that I want to work on with the next group that I lead. Some of the leadership skills that I feel I did well on: I set a positive tone. I used my energy to show enthusiasm and a deep engagement and care for the topic that was being discussed. I used my eyes to look for nonverbal cues. And I used my voice, the tone, the pitch, and the volume to pace the group, to decide if we needed to be moving faster or if we wanted to move slower and examine things more carefully, depending upon where we were in the meeting. In conclusion, the highlights that I wanted to share: it was a wonderful experience, and I thoroughly enjoyed leading this group. As an officer in the Navy, I'm often the one who's doing the talking, and my enlisted staff are the ones who are listening. So it can be very one-sided and task-oriented. This experience as a group leader gave the opportunity to me to be an observer, a peer, and an equal. And by listening and not talking, I saw the barriers dissolve and the bonds begin to form between my peers in a way that was almost magic to watch. I saw people begin to feel more comfortable and establish a sense of trust. They felt that they could be themselves they felt that they were being cared for by other members of the group. And they felt a sense of belonging. They knew that they belonged there. How I interpreted that is the cohesive, that is the beginning of cohesion that happens in the Forsyth text. He talks about the basics of group dynamics and how cohesion and group dynamics brings about change that we could not achieve as individuals alone. When we concluded the meeting, every member said that they wanted to participate in a group again because of how well this first group experience had gone. And that made me feel really good as a group leader, that I had done something right. So I am very excited about leading a group again and beginning a new process in my clinic where we can engage and talk to each other as peers rather than as military members. So it was a wonderful experience, and I've learned a lot more about what I want to be as a counselor. And I really enjoyed the process. Thank you so much.